In the vast silence of the ancient American landscape, across windswept plains, sunken cities, and overgrown temple mounds, there lies something deeper than ruins. It's a silence that feels deliberate, purposeful. Not everything our ancestors did was meant to be understood by all. In fact, some of it was meant never to be understood by anyone except the initiated. Hidden within oral traditions, carved into symbolic glyphs and encoded in architecture, lies the shadowy legacy of secret societies and sacred oaths that governed knowledge, ritual, and power in ancient America. From the kivas of the Puebloans to the mounds of the Mississippians, from Maya astronomer priests to the medicine lodges of the northern tribes, a thread of silence winds through the past. It's not the silence of forgetting, it's the silence of intention. These groups operated in darkness, not out of shame, but out of reverence. What were these ancient orders protecting? What were they preparing for? Today, we descend into the forgotten chambers, follow the trail of symbols, and seek out the unspoken truths of America's most secretive societies. To truly understand secret societies, we must start with a fundamental idea. In the ancient world, knowledge was not information, it was power. To know the rhythms of the stars, the sacred plants, the timing of the rains, or the rituals that heal or kill, that was not everyday wisdom. That was divine power. And divine power was never distributed freely. In many ancient American societies, knowledge was earned through trials, silence, and sacrifice. Elders, shamans, and priest kings guarded it with deadly seriousness. Oral oaths were binding. To speak what you had not earned could bring death, not as punishment, but as necessity. Uninitiated eyes were thought to weaken the ritual. Unworthy ears could twist sacred knowledge into chaos. We see this in many surviving indigenous traditions. Certain songs are only sung in ceremony. Certain words are never written. And some symbols are only explained to those who have undergone the proper rites of passage. The silence wasn't ignorance, it was a veil, and crossing it, uninvited, had consequences. Among the Puebloan peoples, especially the Hopi, Zuni, and Tiwa, ritual life revolves around the Kachinas. These spiritual beings are believed to inhabit the mountains, clouds, and natural forces, and during specific times of year, they descend to interact with the people. Through masked dances, secret songs, and complex ceremonies, the public sees the surface, bright masks, dramatic dances, and rituals that bless the crops. But beneath that is a world of oaths, secrecy, and sacred responsibility. Young boys are slowly initiated into Kachina societies in stages, beginning with storytelling and ending in full ritual roles. Each step involves learning hidden meanings behind dances, songs, and sacred objects, truths that outsiders can never know. Even the dancers' identities are concealed. In many villages, it is taboo to speak the name of a dancer during ceremony. The Kachina isn't a man in a mask, it is the spirit itself. Violating the secrecy of these rites was believed to disrupt the balance between worlds, bringing drought, illness, or spiritual chaos. Secrecy, in this case, wasn't about hiding from the world, it was about protecting the world. At its peak, around 1100 CE, Cahokia was one of the largest cities in the world, rivaling European capitals. With massive platform mounds, plazas, and astronomical markers, the city was a center of power, trade, and ritual. But Cahokia's spiritual core was not public. It was hidden behind the walls of elite temples and within the elite ruling class. Mound 72 reveals a disturbing glimpse into these secret rites. It contains the remains of a high-status individual buried with over 250 sacrificial victims. The alignments of the burial pits and associated artifacts suggest a cosmological or religious logic, one understood only by Cahokia's priesthood. These priests likely followed ritual calendars based on the solstices and lunar cycles. They conducted ceremonies on temple mounds, often isolated from the public. Their knowledge, astronomy, agriculture, death rites, was reserved for a small elite, possibly initiated through dangerous rites and bound by blood oaths. The knowledge of when to plant, how to sacrifice, when to war or make peace, these were state secrets as much as spiritual ones. In the woodlands of the Great Lakes region, indigenous nations like the Ojibwe, Menominee, and Potawatomi formed a powerful esoteric society known as the Midewiwin, the Grand Medicine Society. This wasn't just a group of herbalists, it was a spiritual order, structured in degrees, each containing increasingly sacred and hidden knowledge. Initiates were not simply taught, they underwent years of fasting, isolation, dreaming, and symbolic rebirth. Their initiation rituals involved symbolic death, encounters with spiritual beings, and the reception of sacred bundles containing chants, instruments, and medicinal tools. Within Midewiwin lodges, chants and cosmological stories were passed down, but never written. The highest teachings were spoken only in ceremony and never to outsiders. Many of these teachings explained the structure of the universe, the journey of the soul, and the spiritual contracts between humans and nature. Those who violated Midewiwin oaths weren't punished by people. They were believed to be punished by the spirits. Illness, madness, or misfortune would follow. Silence was a form of spiritual armor. Breaking it was like stepping into the storm, unprotected. The Maya left behind one of the most elaborate and mysterious knowledge systems in the world. Their glyphs, calendars, and astronomy reflect a world view in which time was alive, cyclical, and divine. But few in Maya society understood this system. It was the guarded domain of priest astronomers, an elite class who kept time not by counting days, but by invoking gods. Training for a Maya priest may have started in youth, selected from noble lineages. The child would be taught glyphs, rituals, numerology, and the art of sacrifice. Bloodletting was essential, not just symbolic, but literal. Pain was the price of knowledge. Rituals involving entheogenic plants, fasting, and sensory deprivation helped initiates enter trance states where they were believed to communicate with deities. These visions were not shared outside the sacred circle. Even today, the remnants of these secret teachings survive in the modern Maya daykeepers, the Ajikaij, who still guide ceremonies based on the Tzolkin calendar. Their knowledge is oral, their rites precise, and their words few. The silence continues. Across the eastern woodlands and southeastern ceremonial complex, the serpent appears again and again, on copper plates carved into earthworks and painted onto pottery. But these serpents were not just symbols. Some researchers suggest they represent actual mystery cults or warrior societies, bound by oaths, trained in spiritual warfare, and keepers of death rites. The famous Great Serpent Mound in Ohio, with its precise solar alignments, may have been a ceremonial site for these brotherhoods. In war lodges of the Iroquois and other eastern tribes, warriors were initiated into death societies, groups that handled burial rituals, vengeance warfare, or sacred duels. These lodges followed strict codes of conduct and secrecy. Initiates swore never to reveal the society's inner workings, even under threat of death. Some of these warrior groups practiced ritual scarification, symbolic cannibalism, or trance combat. Their identities were concealed, their rituals hidden, their oaths created a bond stronger than blood, one that survived the fall of cities and the passage of empires. Today, much of what was once protected by oaths and sacred vows has vanished, or so it seems. But in the songs of elders, the quiet of ceremonial spaces, and the refusal to explain the unexplainable, the ancient silence lives on. In native communities across the Americas, elements of these societies endure, hidden not because they are forgotten, but because they are still alive. The true mystery may not be what we've lost, but what remains just out of reach, guarded by those still bound to ancient promises. Maybe the ancients weren't primitive. They were deliberate. They understood that some knowledge, if mishandled, could destroy. Maybe the deepest truths aren't shouted in stone. They're passed in firelight, wrapped in smoke, and carried in silence. What about you, dear viewer? Do you have any secrets you'd like to share? If so, please do so. I'd love to hear more about my awesome viewers. This video has now come to an end, but fret not, there will be more coming. Make sure to stay tuned by clicking that subscribe button, and I would also greatly appreciate it if you were to click on that like button. Ooh, and that bell too. But for now, goodbye.